relaxed everybody, we went into this dialogue about the Olympic movement. And he realized that we were talking about doing this Olympic boycott. And the essence of the meeting was that he wanted to come out and support the Olympic boycott. He said, I don't want to be in charge. I want to be second in command under Harry Edwards because I think Professor Edwards is doing a fantastic job. However, I'm not going to make the announcement about this until I return from Memphis. And then he said, incidentally, they sent me a letter, and they told me this letter, they got a bullet with my name on it, and I wouldn't have to wait long for it. So I listened to him in this conversation. So when the meeting's over, he asked, did I have any questions? Yeah, Dr. King, I got 2 questions. First question is, why would you support the Olympic boycott? He said to me, no, let me take that back. The first question was to him, Dr. King, if they said they sent a letter and they tell you they're going to take your life, why would you go back to Memphis? He looked at me, he smiled, he said, that's a good question. In the meantime, I used to wear shades all the time, dark shades, no tint at that time. But I always had a tendency, when I'm serious with somebody, I want the serious end, I'll pull my glasses down, and I want the eye-to-eye contact. I'm looking in his eyes. And most everybody in here can understand why, what I'm looking for. What is that be? What I'll be looking for? If a man tell you that somebody tell you that they're going to kill you, are you supposed to be like a rock, or are you supposed to be a little shaky? Well, I thought that the man might have a little shakiness too. But when I looked in his eyes, he was solid as that fist that I had in Mexico City. And not only that, when I looked deep in his eyes, he didn't have concern for himself as much as he had love for humanity. That was a strong move. And he looked at me and he said to me, he said, well, John, that's a good question. He said, here's the answer. I have to go back to Memphis and stand for those that can't stand for themselves. And John, I have to go back and stand for those that won't stand for themselves. You know how powerful that statement is? Here's individuals that want to stand, but they're being suppressed, but they can't stand. And then here's other individuals that can stand, those that get into corporate office and they have to listen to the racist jokes in the office that can stand and maybe make a difference. They just feel that they don't have enough courage, or as I say, basketballs to stand. Understand? So he said, I have to go stand for them. And that came like full circle in my life because that's what I've been doing from the time I was a little knee-high to a grasshopper. Fighting for those that couldn't fight for themselves, standing for those that wanted somebody to come in and carry their deal. And then he said to me, see, you had 2 questions. I said, oh, yes. I said, Dr. King, did you ever box? Did you play basketball? What did you do? He said, I can't shoot pool. I said, well, why would you get involved in the Olympic movement? And he looked at me and said, that's a better question than the first one. I said to him, I said, well, I don't understand. He said, well, John, imagine this. You're in a lake, and you're in a boat, and you're out in the middle of the lake, and he said, you just sitting there, and everything is serene, quiet, and still. He said, you reach down into the boat, and you pick up a rock. He said, you drop that rock in the water. He said, what happens? The first thing I'm thinking about is vibration. He said, yeah, waves. He said, do you know that that rock is the Olympic boycott? He said, if you boycott the Olympic Games, all the black athletes, all the athletes that might be sympathetic to the cause, he said, do you realize that that would send ripples throughout the world? He said, but even greater than that, he said, you know, the greatest part is that it's a nonviolent act. You don't have to shoot nobody. You don't have to kill nobody. You don't have to maim nobody. You don't have to put no bullets on. All you have to do is say, we choose not to compete. He said, imagine if the black soldiers in America in the wars that we've had just chose to step away from the war and say, I choose not to go. Do you think America would have won the wars that they've won?